be obsessed about your customer and about the customer journey. I myself talked to over 100 customers on the phone. Just, I know, see it in Shopify backend. I have their phone number. I just call them, say, hey, my name is Lukas from Naturbummler. Do you have 20 to 30 minutes? Afterwards, you will get a €100 voucher for online shop. I just have a couple of questions. And then really understanding the customer journey, the customer pain, and the customer needs, and really be obsessed about that with, all your gut. And really understanding why the consumer is buying your product. I was always pretty restless in a sense of, I'm not the kind of guy that will do a research project for a year or so and it can focus on one topic. I'm, very emotionally driven. I call it a founder's ADHD, kind of, trying to do different things at the same time and juggling with 12 balls and 2 or 3 fall on the floor sometimes. And then in my bachelor's, I founded an initiative which was called Heidelberg Wine Society. Basically, our goal was to get free alcohol paid by the university. So we masked it as a wine society. But it was fun. We had 30, 40 people all coming together. I mean, the disadvantage of that is that we are probably growing slower than if we would have external capital. This year we will have a revenue of around 10 million euros, more or less, yearly
Crazy.
Revenue. But it's our 4th year, right? And I believe that with external capital and, having being funded, we could even have more up to this point.
Welcome to the Frankfurt School Entrepreneurship Center podcast. Here we connect with inspiring founders and share insights to show you how entrepreneurship could be your next big career step. Whether you're fresh out of university or looking for a new direction, join us as we explore how to turn ideas into impactful ventures.
Lukas, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Ram.
So what we're doing here with our podcast is really trying to find out who's the entrepreneur behind the startup. Many podcasts talk about the startup, but we want to know what makes an entrepreneur and your journey a bit personal. And what makes this podcast particularly interesting is, Lukas, I didn't have much time to get to know you.
Perfect.
So we're going to get to know each other pretty well in
Sounds
this. So where were you born? Where are you from in Germany?
I was actually born in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. Brazilian dad, German mom. My mom, back in the days, wanted to do a year abroad in Rio, but she ended up staying for 15 years where she met my dad. So I went to school in Brazil, in Rio, and I moved to Stuttgart, Germany when I was 8 years old, I believe. So I had the full German cultural shock experience. A couple of years back, and here I am now living in Frankfurt.
And did you grow up in Stuttgart? Did you go to Grundschule, high school there?
So half of high school, half of Grundschule, elementary school I did in Stuttgart. And, high school also in Stuttgart, everything in Stuttgart, till I did my bachelor's at the University of Heidelberg, so not too far from here, and then a master's at Frankfurt School.
Okay. And when you came to Germany at the age of 8, did you speak German?
I spoke German, not as good as I do now. My mom always used to speak German to me all the time, but, let's say my German was at maybe 70%, 80%, so I had some difficulties at school in the beginning, but, after 1 or 2 years, that evened out a little bit.
Nice. I'm trying to understand a little bit what makes an entrepreneur with my guests. And when you were in school as a kid, were you different than the other kids? Or did you think I'm going to graduate and get a corporate job?
I actually thought about that question before coming here a lot. I was just, trying to find some patterns in my life that maybe pinpointed that I will be an entrepreneur someday. And there are a couple of things. So one of the things was I was always pretty restless in a sense of, I'm not the kind of guy that will do a research project for a year or so and it can focus on one topic. I'm, very emotionally driven. I call it a founder's ADHD, kind of, trying to do different things at the same time and juggling with 12 balls and 2 or 3 fall on the floor sometimes. But there were some things I always liked to do. I always loved bringing people together. So at high school, I was responsible for organizing the parties of our class to collect money, to finance the the commencement of the high school graduation. And then in my bachelor's, I founded an initiative which was called Heidelberg Wine Society. Basically, our goal was to get free alcohol paid by the university. So we masked it as a wine society. But it was fun. We had 30, 40 people all coming together, talking about wine, and it was all paid by the university. I was responsible for organizing the economics department soccer team. So some patterns were there, and then here at the Masters at Frankfurt School, I founded an initiative which is called FS Sports Business. I think it still exists to this day. Not entirely sure. I think it does.
FS Sports Business. What is that?
So basically, I always loved marketing and sales, and at Frankfurt School, you have marketing and sales, but the dominant topics, of course, are either finance or consulting and strategy, which are all fine and very interesting as well. But I always loved sports business. I always loved, the intersection between what I'm doing now, right? Outdoor sports and business. So I wanted to get in touch with people, with leaders from the industry. And the easiest way for me to do that during my master's was by founding an initiative and being able to invite those individuals as speakers, right? So I could get in touch with them. And that was the whole point of the initiative, basically.
So definitely some pattern I can see. How were your grades in high school? Were you a good student or just
elementary school was fine. High school, gymnasium was fine as well until I hit puberty. Then it all went downhill from there. I was a horrible student. I think my parents were worried all the time about me. I was good at the topics that interested me, but other than that, I just didn't see the point. And in the last 1 or 2 years, I knew, okay, now I gotta buckle up and start studying. But I was never a student. I was never the kind of person that, I knew, I'm gonna study medicine, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I just wasn't. I wasn't a good student.
Tell us, do you come from an entrepreneurial family? What does your father do, your mom?
More or less. So I heard the podcast before, and almost all the parents are doctors, and my dad is a doctor as well.
Another one. You didn't follow in your dad's footsteps.
No, I didn't. And my mom, she has a small NGO, so she works in a philanthropy department where she does trauma therapy with refugees, for instance, in Germany now. A lot of people refugees coming from Syria or Ukraine, etc. So she does that. Mm-hmm. And my dad has his own little clinic, meaning that both of them were always their own bosses. It was never a topic of, I have to ask this or that person if I'm allowed to take vacation or go on vacation. They always led very self-determined lives, I would say. And I think that impacted me a lot when becoming an entrepreneur. Or I would say liberty was definitely one of the reasons I wanted to become an entrepreneur and have my own business, for sure.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have four siblings in total.
Oh, wow.
It's a big mix, yeah.
And any of them doctors?
One of them made it to be a doctor. One of them. Okay. I'm the black sheep in the family. I'm not a doctor.
No, but the others are a bit like you, entrepreneurial mindset? What would you say?
My other brother, he did his master's at, he's very smart as well. He went to Fletcher and Harvard, so it's like a dual degree where he did his, he did a master's there in international relations, in IR. And, he works in the intersection between economics and politics, so lobbyism basically. And my other siblings, one is still in school. But I think he is probably the one that's always will become an entrepreneur as well. Maybe. Let's see. Okay. But I'm the only business-wise an entrepreneur in the family.
What did you study in Heidelberg?
Economics.
Economics.
Yes, I studied economics because my grades were too bad to study business administration in Germany. So I said, all right, let's just go for economics instead.
And what was your first job? My
first job? After masters, after graduating?
No, in general.
In general, my very first job.
Really proper job?
Proper job. I think the very first was in high school working for a catering company. And then the job that was more related to study was my bachelor's. I was a working student at Bosch. at Robert Bosch, close to Stuttgart, where I was in the project management department. They were doing a software rollout in Brazil, and since I speak Portuguese, they was looking for working students that was able to help them. And then, most of my internships and everything I did afterwards was always related to marketing. So I worked at Hugo Boss in the global marketing section. I worked at Bayern Munich.
Wow.
In the marketing section. It was international marketing. And I also did one internship at a startup here in Frankfurt. So it was very wildly mixed, I would say.
And did all these internships, did they made it more and more clear that you wanted to be your own boss one day?
Not at the beginning. So the story of how or why I chose e-commerce or having a D2C brand. So I was doing a summer internship doing my master's at Frankfurt School at Bayern Munich. It was COVID and I was in the Department of International Marketing. So that's the department that's responsible for the activation of Bayern Munich together with their sponsors abroad, right? Let's take the beer brand Paulaner, activating Paulaner in Bayern Munich in the United States. But it was COVID, meaning that the department was dead essentially, and I was there and I was incredibly bored. So each day I made myself a list of things I'm going to learn today, things I'm going to read about, and I just stumbled upon e-commerce and D2C and entrepreneurship, and I was just in this rabbit hole. And during those 3 months, I did nothing but educate myself, and I was hooked. I was addicted. It was like an instant boom. Okay, that's it. And then I started founding a company with a friend of mine. It was Amazon FBA. So the easiest way of earning money in the internet is just by doing Amazon products. Something you could just do on the side by working 2 or 3 hours a day.
Is it like drop shipping? What is it?
No, not drop shipping, but so you develop products, you sell products, but you only sell them through Amazon, and the distribution is very, very simple. And if you have an average EQ and some grit, there's a blueprint on how to do it. Everybody can do it. It's not hard. That was my first touch point with entrepreneurship. And then I sold that company and started working at a startup in Stuttgart, which is called a GmbH. It's basically founded by 2 influencers, and they have a couple of influencer brands in the fashion sector and everything. And I was working there. And during that time, I spoke a lot to a good friend of mine, Christian. He was my best friend during my bachelor's. And Christian is my co-founder nowadays at Naturbummler. So, we remained very good friends, and we always talked about business ideas. You know how it is, you can have one day, you and me locked in a room, we probably would have 20 cool ideas, right? Yeah. But, choosing an idea and actually executing, that's always the hardest part. So, and he really is an outdoor guy. He loves camp, he loves all that kind of stuff. I like it as well, but not as much as Christian does. And it was, end of 2019, we're just talking about a lot of different stuff, 2020, and he bought himself a rooftop tent, which was incredibly expensive. He bought it used. He did some amendments, some small amendments, like adding some bags, putting on a nicer mattress and stuff like that. And he put it on eBay Kleinanzeigen, which is the German Craigslist. And then he had 30, 40 people writing him interested in a rooftop tent. And I was on the phone with him, and I just told him, Christian, imagine if you had 40 rooftop tents. And he looked at me, he's like, yes, imagine. And that was the only proof of concept we had for starting the company, for starting in Naturbummler. We just went all in, all the little money we could scrap together, asking our parents, asking friends and family. We're still bootstrapped, right? So we didn't give out a single percent until this point. I'm not saying it will never happen, but at least until now. To make the first order. And then
let's hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. No, this is so fascinating, and I do want you to present Naturbummler, but let's go a few steps back. What brought you to Frankfurt School? Why Frankfurt School? Of all places, where tell.
So always wanted to study abroad as well, do my master's abroad, but at the same time, I wanted to study in a city where I would be able to have a local network. And I think network-wise, Frankfurt School is just amazing, right? I mean, unfortunately, the entrepreneurship center back then didn't exist when I studied, but in terms of business context to the local industry and also the German industry, Frankfurt School is just, astounding. And the network and the practical approach to things, I think the approach Frankfurt School has to teaching is also very entrepreneurial, right? I mean, I remember in the first semester we had a marketing class, a case study with Procter & Gamble, problem we had to solve. So very entrepreneurial approach as well.
What did you study?
Management.
Master in management.
Yes,
okay. Yes. This is a 2-year study, right?
2-year
4
study.
semesters.
Yeah.
Is there an abroad semester or an internship?
Yeah, there's a 3-month internship, a summer internship, and an optional semester abroad. Unfortunately, I started during COVID, so semester abroad was a bit more difficult, but yes.
And that's when you did the Bayern Munich, and that's when everything went towards Naturbummler, right?
Yes, exactly.
Tell me, so you're in Frankfurt School. There's a good network. You could go to work in a financial institution or the leading consulting firms. That didn't entice you? There was no thinking about your opportunity costs there?
I think that is the hardest part when becoming an entrepreneur or choosing that rather rough path, is seeing your friends earning 6-figure incomes in the first year, and you're there, they're having these amazing lives and, traveling abroad, going to expensive restaurants and doing all that kind of stuff, and you're there stuck with your company. But I was never a materialistic person, and I think when you have, let's say, a low life standard, you have a student housing or whatever, it's fairly easy to found a company. But yeah, I did think about it a lot. It's definitely not an easy decision. I think the hardest thing, what you just said, is opportunity cost. Definitely.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Exactly. Here at Frankfurt School, we have all this industry, all the banks, the consulting around you. It's not an easy decision.
It's why I hold huge respect for all entrepreneurs like yourself for doing this. It's amazing. What is D2C?
D2C is direct to consumer. It means that you are responsible for developing, manufacturing the products, and you sell them directly to consumers, right? So I don't sell them to a store and the store sells it. You're responsible for the entire chain. Okay.
And tell us now, what is Naturbummler? In a couple of sentences.
Yeah, Naturbummler essentially is a D2C brand located in Mannheim, so 45-50 minutes from Frankfurt. We manufacture and sell camping equipment, especially rooftop tents. Rooftop tents are basically like a car box you put on top of your car, which is just a bit bigger, where you can, put in, there's a mattress inside. It feels like sleeping in your own bed almost. And yeah, we also sell a lot of other outdoor equipment like stand-up paddling boards and so on. And our goal is to become the leading camping brand in Europe in the next 5 to 10 years.
And is this no? This is not the first startup. You made an exit. You sold a company before. You mentioned. Tell us a little bit about that. And were there any hardships? What did you learn from that experience for setting up Naturbummler?
Yeah. So the first company it wasn't a startup. It was the Amazon FBA business, right? So it's I would say a very opportunistic approach to entrepreneurship. It's not something where you put your soul and your heart in and you have a meaning and a vision. It's, the essential is basically to generate revenue and money and have your first experience in an e-commerce space. But the learnings I had about product development, about digital marketing, that's how it all started. And it's a business model you can easily have on the side whilst working full-time, whilst working a 50-40 hour job. If you invest 10 to 15 hours, 20 hours a week, you can easily build up a business there. So sold that. and kept working in the digital marketing space. And then the idea for Naturbummler came along, and we also did that on the side. It was a stressful times, so working the weekends. And when we hit 1.5 million in revenue in euros, that was when we thought to ourselves, right, now we have to quit and go all in.
So you mentioned you hit the 1.5. This was the turning point. You're going all in. What do you think made you reach that 1.5? What was it? Because you initially started with one product, the tents, right? You didn't have all the things around. You grew that, no?
Yeah. So I think it is definitely two aspects that are detrimental to our success. The one is product development. I know that everybody says that, but you really have to create amazing products. Create amazing products that people just want to rip out of your hands. And
easier said than done.
Definitely. Easier said than done. 100%. And
so how do you do it?
So we iterate a lot, right? There's this saying that if you launch your product when it's perfect, then you're launching it too late. And I'm a big, big believer in that. So we launch pretty fast, small amount of items, and then we iterate. We gather customer feedback, we improve. We gather customer feedback, we improve. And that just brings us very close to having a product that is perfect for the market, price-wise, but also in terms of the features, right?
How do you get the customer feedback?
Yeah, and that is the second pillar, I would say. Also, another thing everybody says, but it is so true. Be obsessed about your customer and about the customer journey. I, myself, talked to over 100 customers on the phone. Just, I know, see it in Shopify backend. I have their phone number. I just call them, say, hey, my name is Lukas from Naturbummler. Do you have 20 to 30 minutes? Afterwards, you will get a €100 voucher for online shop. I just have a couple of questions. And then really understanding the customer journey, the customer pain, and the customer needs, and really be obsessed about that with, all your gut. And really understanding why the consumer is buying your product. The one part is definitely the qualitative feedback, calling customers, which I think is something very little people do. And the other part is the quantitative feedback, right? Looking at the data, having a post-purchase survey, etc.
So obsess about your customer. This is one of the learnings, pretty important. There's a few of them. Obviously, you learned in your first venture, what you call it, the Amazon business, about product development and e-commerce. You mentioned that launch first. Don't wait for perfect. Does that mean also quality? You need to somehow sacrifice quality? In your business, it's tough.
I would say there are some features that are quality independent, right? Let's take color, for instance. Let's take, the amount of bags you put in a rooftop tent. How big is the mattress? What does the customer really want? And in terms of quality, for me, that's the materials. And the materials, that is something that has to be perfect in my experience. You gotta, we do a lot of checks in laboratories, especially for rooftop tents. It's something that's on top of your car and you're going on the German Autobahn with 130 kilometers per hour. So definitely it has to be great quality and safe. But more in terms of the features, that is something that doesn't have to be perfect. Where I believe that you just have to be quick, put it out there, and then keep improving.
And who does the product? Are you any of you engineers or?
No, we're not engineers. We're very good at understanding the consumer and verbalizing the needs of the consumer. And we then have an external engineer who helps us to translate our findings into a 3D sketch or a technical drawing, for instance. And with that technical drawing, with that translation of what we have learned, we go to our manufacturer and we try to develop everything. So we also, most of our products are all manufactured in China. So we also go to China, we stay there for 2 weeks, we're inside the manufacturing, we sleep there until it's done. And just be there and develop the product together with
you
the
sleep in the
manufacturing
tents, perhaps?
team. Not in China, at least.
Very, very nice. And during COVID, there must have been supply chain disruptions, no? And how did you overcome those? So what were the biggest obstacles? It's not all rosy. There were obstacles.
Oh yeah, definitely. There were many obstacles. There were so many obstacles. You could make a whole another podcast only about that.
Tell us about one or two that we can learn from.
Sure. So first, COVID. COVID actually was very lucky for us because we just had ordered a lot of rooftop tents for our first batch, and then COVID hit, and the rooftop tent demand was just going crazy because you could not go to hotels, you could not go do classical vacationing, and then the rooftop tent topic was suddenly there. And that was our luck,
I didn't think of that, actually. Wow.
Timing in the market, right?
I thought nobody's going out, nobody's traveling, but...
Yeah. So that's also something, I think timing is something we didn't strategize, we didn't anticipate COVID, nobody did. So we were lucky in that sense, in the beginning at least. And then we had the same issues everybody else had, right? Getting more product, it was just incredibly difficult. But the biggest obstacles we are encountering until this day is definitely cash flow. There were 2 or 3 times when we were not sure how we will pay wages at the end of the month, because now we have a headcount of 13, 14 people. We're not a 2-man operation anymore. Otherwise, it would be fine. The 2 of us, we don't need anything. We'll just sleep on a couch or wherever. It's totally fine. But when you have responsibility for others, it's totally different. So when, cash flow planning, having a good cash flow calculation, I know many startups that died because of that. They just went completely broke because they didn't have a good cash flow operations. So that is definitely something. Until this day, we're struggling a little bit with. We improved it a lot, but it's nowhere near perfect.
So this was definitely one of the most difficult moments. People rarely realize that being an entrepreneur and having the responsibility over your staff is quite stressful. And how are you going to pay your staff next Monday, for example, for sure? You mentioned you didn't raise any external capital. You're fully bootstrapped. How are you doing this? This is a hardware stuff. This is cash in advance. A lot needs to be paid to China, vice versa.
Yeah,
so
definitely. I mean, a disadvantage of that is that we are probably growing slower than if we would have external capital. This year we will have a revenue of around 10 million euros, more or less, yearly revenue. But it's our 4th year, right? And I believe that with external capital and having being funded, we could even have more up to this point. That's a disadvantage, but it's more snowball effect, right? You start small, you invest everything you have in a company. We were making significantly large sums without paying us a single euro in wage. We were not giving us any bonuses or whatsoever. We're working very long hours. And I think the benefit of bootstrapping a company is that from the beginning, you learn how to be very cost effective, right? If it's small stuff. You don't buy the expensive chairs. You don't buy the expensive tables. You check all your software subscriptions once a month. Do we really need XYZ Pro? And so that is definitely something. It's a struggle, but it's a lot of fun because we are very independent, and that's also a good thing in my opinion.
So until what point do you bootstrap? And why have you resisted in going for a fundraise?
I think that as soon as we have saturated the German and Austrian and Swiss market, and we really need to go international in order to grow. That is the point where we will need external capital, because going abroad is expensive, and that is not, I think if you have a strategy to go to Scandinavia, for instance, and you really want to go all in, you cannot plan the way we plan. The way we plan is we're profitable all the time. We have to be profitable. But if we go to Scandinavia and we want to be bold, that is a whole nother ball game. And to play that ball game, I believe you need external capital. And when we reach that point, which can be in 1 or 2 years, then that is the point where I believe that we will probably try to raise something. But up to this point, we are doing pretty good so far. And if we need, let's say, money, we can also go to a bank. But if we would try to raise money, definitely with a strategic perspective, right? With a VC that has already brought several D2C startups to the US or Europe and has just a great network and infrastructure.
Tell me, do you have any mentors or any advisors?
Many, actually, yeah. I have many from the industry, many D2C investors from Frankfurt, some, and depends on the area. I have one for leadership, one for marketing, one for mindset as well, because it can be quite a struggle to be an
Are those really formal? This is for this is, and you pay them, or it's informal? You meet over coffee on
It's informal.
Yeah.
People underestimate, especially I think young people, how much people have experienced, like people who have experienced like to give something back, right? When I meet somebody who's, 18, 19 years old and this person wants to learn from me, I'm super happy. I'm like, man, take everything you need. I'm just glad to be able to help you and help someone who's aspired as you are.
That's impressive. We use people like you in our FS Entrepreneurship Center as coaches. To your experience always benefits a young entrepreneur's experience, and I'm sure that you mentoring someone else also would help you in a way. I know it from personally. I mentor more than I have mentors. But I see the value of mentors as tremendous all the time, no matter what stage of my career. It's super important.
Do you have mentors you talk to regularly?
Yes, absolutely. Some of them know that I consider them mentors, and it's like you said, one of them is really self-awareness mindset. Growth, personal growth, probably one of the most important ones.
Totally agree.
And then I have more industry focused. So one who's in the blockchain space, one in the cybersecurity space. And these people, it's information sharing and also learning from their experiences. They're entrepreneurs that have sold their companies. They're entrepreneurs that have also failed very big with companies, and learning from their stories is really amazing. And I try to talk to all of them every 90 days, so 1.5 months. So there's no radio silence, like we didn't talk for a year.
Yeah.
And sometimes even if there's nothing to talk about, pick up the phone, or I always tell them, if you transit through Frankfurt, you tell me, and
that's great advice.
We meet.
Yeah.
It's do you see the same value on your mentors as well?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Absolutely.
That is something I'm trying to work more on this year, because I have a list of people I want to gain as my mentors. So I'm trying to work through that and try to get in touch with them. But yeah, totally agree.
Look, what triggered this question about mentors is we started speaking about you bootstrapping, and at what stage do you go and get external financing? You cannot possibly know it all by yourself. You really need to talk to, like you said, the entrepreneurs, the investors among them, and get a little bit their feedback. At the end of the day, it's your company and you will decide. But this is super important.
Yeah. 100%.
Tell me about your co-founder. So you mentioned you're around 14 people, 2 co-founders?
Two
That's it?
co-founders.
Two
That's it.
co-founders. So your brother in crime. Tell me, do you guys how do you get along? Do you fight? Do you disagree? Are there low points, and how do you get through them?
I think we're the perfect co-founding couple, so to say, because we're so different from each other. Everything I hate, he loves, and the other way around. And I'm more extroverted. If let's say we had this opportunity where we had to pitch, and I really like to do that. I like to go on a stage and I like to pitch, and he's the opposite of that. So there was never the question of who's going to do it. It was just instantly clear. And the same goes for task distribution. Christian is very strong in finance, supply chain operations, and those are not necessarily areas that are my focus. And I'm strong in marketing, sales, HR, strategy. So that's how we distribute the tasks. We don't really fight. We discuss a lot without being emotional, I would say. There are like many long nights where we have a lot of discussions, but ultimately we get along very well. And I think having co-founders that complement you is very important, yeah.
For sure. It reminds me, 2 co-founders that I invested in a small ticket, but many years ago. Lost my money, by the way. It sounds a little bit. The one guy was the total extrovert, the other guy was the total introvert. And the problem with the extrovert was that he thought that his co-founder always agreed with him. But it was just because his personality did not allow him to speak out. And when we sat with a coach during that coaching, everything exploded basically. For half a year, the guy has not been agreeing with his co-founder. So does Christian actually voice out stuff? Yeah, even though he's the more...
Yeah, he does. I mean, he's not quiet. He's introverted. And he definitely speaks out his opinion.
Yeah.
Introverted in the sense of not being the guy that loves to be around 100 people each day.
So tell me... just coming to a close, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who are thinking of getting into this journey? Entrepreneurship can be a profession, can be your career. We talked about the opportunity cost. Do you regret not going into the 6-figure starting salaries? Let's answer that question first.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Best decision I ever made.
So what advice would you give them?
I think one advice I would give them is what you touch upon as well, is work on your personality, work on your mindset, and work on your reflection, and really find out who you are. And find out who you are apart from all the shiny objects that are out there. Shiny objects, I mean wearing a suit, going to a building that has 70 floors and earning a lot of money. Really find out, what do you really want to do? What are you good at? And just really listen to yourself, listen to your inner voice. And as soon as you find out what that is, just go all in. Especially if you're young. I think it's much harder to go all in if you have a family, if you're older, if you have high living standards, right? But if you're young, then just go all the way in.
And do you believe you've done it yourself? Would you give yourself any advice if you could talk to Lukas at the age of 18?
I probably would. I mean, I only had the mindset to found a company when I was 25, 26 years old. And before that, I just had I had a direction, but I didn't know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, that I wanted to found my own company. Because it just feels like such a big step. It feels like something that is impossible to do. And that's maybe the second advice. As soon as you talk to people who did it, you realize, they're not much smarter than I am. They're only humans. They work hard, yeah. They make some good decisions, of course, but they're all just normal people like me. If they did it, then I can do it as well.
Lukas, this is an amazing way to finish the podcast, because this is the message I want to portray. We're just human beings. You grew up like any other student. Do you still go back to Brazil?
Yeah, I was there the whole February.
The carnival time?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, lovely. Thank you so much. It's been great having you.
Thank you, Ram. It was great.
Thanks.
Hey there, this is Christina from Entrepreneurship Center. Just a quick reminder that we are also active on Instagram. If you're enjoying the podcast, we'd love for you to join the EC community by following us there. Check out the link in the description below. Have a good one.